We are live. Hello and welcome to the Lion Show. I'm your host, your favorite business coach, Robert Lyon. Today we have the great privilege of talking to Melissa Concessio. She's a personal development expert. She's a coach. She's an author, and she's just an amazing woman. And I'm just super excited to have her on the show today. So, Melissa, why don't you introduce yourself and kind of tell everybody who you are and what you're up to?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Melissa Concessio. It's like the word concession without the N, and I get auto-corrected all the time. But it's a fun place to be here with you, Robert. And I have spent my life learning about personal development and then getting into execution mode by writing a book, speaking. But now I'm in a phase of life where I want to teach other people how to do it. So I've become a full-time edutainer, trying to teach people what's everything that's in my head, what I've learned through the years, and how to be the best entrepreneur ever, but also have the best lifestyle ever.
Yeah. I recently realized that I'm basically creating like infotainment. So it's like information that's entertaining. So you're doing the same thing with
Yeah, nice.
education that's entertaining. In your personal development and things like that, have you had any major breakthroughs or anything that you're really excited about that you're working on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think you don't realize how much listening impacts you as a writer, and as a speaker as well. Because once you listen to the other side, that's when you can clarify your own speech to send a message out to someone else. That makes it so much better. And I've started listening more, so that's a huge breakthrough for me.
Yeah, just to pick other people's brains and then actually like be in the present moment and be there with them. It's
Yeah,
definitely
understand them
different.
fully. Yeah,
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. I'd kind of like to know more about your book. I love the cover. You
yeah,
want to show everybody again?
yeah.
So it says go f yourself, but it says find yourself. So how
Yeah,
how
it
how
is fine.
how do we find ourselves?
Okay. So a lot of the times we're stuck in our own head. And a lot of the times that we don't get ahead is because we're not loving things. We're just trying to fight ourselves. And there's this constant thing going on in your head about what you can do and what you cannot do. So this is about life lessons, really brutal things that I guess, I went through, but everyone's got their own brutal stories. And it's about going back there, taking the lessons and growing from it, not using it to hurt yourself in the present moment. Because I think a lot of us do that when we've got stories that were bad. For example, you were made fun of. We take that and we live with that, and then that becomes a fear of rejection. Instead, if we take that and we amplify that to help us grow. So, okay, so that's what happened because I didn't do that properly. So now I can learn how to do it, and now people love me. Simple as that.
Yeah, I think we heard the same thing, and it's like when you have these pre-traumas or these ideas in the back of our head, and
Mm,
then instead of looking at it as
mm,
like a struggle or a problem, we flip it on its head and say that progressed us to be more than we are
exactly.
now. It was a moment, and instead of looking at it negatively, it was something positive that actually made it so that we're better off today. That's super powerful. Um, how else can we find ourselves? Like when did you write that book?
So I just published it in December
Oh,
2020, so it's very, very new. I'll tell you the whole backstory. So I used to be a banker by trade, and I
oh,
worked in the corporate world for 15 years.
yeah,
And it was going great. Like that's what I wanted to do when I was younger, all my life. Wanted to get into banking, and I did that. And I was progressing. Things were going great, and then I'm like, no, I really need to live my true passion. I really need to get outside my comfort zone. I'm a zero risk taker. I don't take risks at all. I used to hide in meetings under desks. I'm like, I'm not going to give the answer. I know the answer. Actually, your answer is wrong, but I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to sit here and smile. And I'm like, I cannot be like that anymore because I was restricting myself and I was restricting others in the world from actually learning. So that's when I decided to take a stand and do things I've always wanted to do. That meant taking risks. Part of that was writing the book. I only started in July last year full time. Like I've been doing this part time all my life, but I decided to go full time into it. And I wrote the book starting July last year, and then I published it in December. And yeah, I've been in entrepreneurship ever since, and it's been a fascinating journey.
that's so cool. I love it. So is that kind of also what propelled you to become a coach? Like just you wanted to take some
Yes.
risk, you want to get out there, you want to help people.
Yeah, so I started off, writing, but I really wanted to know if my writing resonated with someone, if it would make a difference. Because I don't want to write. I mean, I want to write for me because that actually writing helps you process so much. By the way, that's on another. But I wanted that writing to mean something to somebody else. Almost like when I speak, I want you to take out tips and use it for your life without me telling you what to do. I
Mhm.
don't like that you should do this and you should. I don't like that. But I like to tell you, hey, this is how I did it. And if that works for you, take it and run.
Huh. Yeah.
So that's what I've kind of tried to do in my book. So, for example, so each chapter starts with a story from my childhood, and it ends with a lesson that I learned from it.
Mhm.
And that lesson you may resonate with or not, but what it does is it gives you not just the lesson, but the research behind the lesson. So I've gone out and I've looked for research that backs up what I'm thinking in my head, but also makes sense and how I've learned from books over the years, and put those two together to give some valid points. And I can go through one of the lessons, so it's going to make sense, complete sense. And yeah, and that's how I've started it with the story. So you understand what's happened, you understand what's going on in my head, then you understand what research backs it, and then you know what I'm imparting, the wisdom I'm imparting and suggesting for you.
Yeah. Well, I would love to do that too, just to think about all the things that happened in my life, and then like, this is why
Mm.
I'm so weird. Yeah. That was good.
Good explanation.
The
Yes, yes.
science of it. Yeah. No, it was good. But give us an example of one of the lessons.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's an analysis, right? So I'll tell you about this one because this one's it's about fears and it holds us back a lot, and it's about childhood fear. So when I was a kid, I used to go to this favorite swimming pool, right? And we'd have a lot of fun there. My brothers and sisters could swim really early. I couldn't. My dad's way of teaching us how to swim is to throw us in the deep end, and you just learn or you die. And my brothers and sisters learned how to swim very quickly, but me, I would just sink in. So I didn't learn how to swim, but I just hung around the pool anyway. And one day when we had gone to the pool, I seen my brothers and sisters jumping from the diving board, and I, when nobody was looking, ran up the diving board, and I was still wearing a dress because I wasn't swimming. I was still wearing this red polka dot dress, and I jumped off the diving board and landed in the deep end by myself. And kids, what they do is if you start to feel like you're drowning, they take in more water. So I started struggling and taking in more water, thinking my sister had seen me from the other end of the pool. She got out, ran into the opposite end, jumped back in, and went into, luckily, she was a good swimmer at a year early age, and she pulled me out. I was unconscious. I was, she said I was puking like a garden hose. And just the water. And everyone, you better learn how to swim because at some point you're going to be in the water. But this fear, this childhood fear, just still stuck with me
Mm.
because I nearly drowned. And I had this fear of water. So I'm like, how am I going to deal with this? I'm going to swim. And I had to take adult swimming classes with all of the kids that were there. And I remember having this green swimming suit, and I would struggle and I looked like a frog underwater, but I still did it, even though I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. I still learned to swim. Swimming, 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 taking lessons, doing all the things I needed to do, learning the pragmatic skills, but also getting over that fear in a safe environment so I could do the things I really wanted to do. One fine day, after swimming for I think about a year, I jumped in the middle of the ocean in Sydney, in the Tasman Sea, and I swam to shore by myself. And
Yeah.
that was for me my biggest accomplishment after feeling this fear for my entire life. So I almost drowned at 3, right? And all the way to now, like recently, a couple of years ago, I couldn't swim just because of that. And that was holding me back so much because I couldn't do so much. And then I suddenly decided I'm going to learn. I did the work, but I took the mental strength to overcome that by doing it in a safe environment and then jumping in. into something that's crazy, like jumping in, like worrying about sharks and all of that. That wasn't even a thing for me because I'm like, I so need to get over this fear first. And so I give people tips after that, and I call it the fear switch. In every moment of time, you can either make a choice of whether you want to live with your fear or you want to face it.
Mm,
And people, there's a common misconception that, oh, we're born fearless and it's overused. Some people who are so good at stuff, they're born fearless. And the thing is that they are not born fearless. At some point in their life, maybe it was very early on, they saw the fear and they choose to face it. And that's how they went through the process of changing their relationship to fear. And that's what I did. I changed my relationship to fear. And there's a lot of philosophers that talk about how fear is actually good. It signals the possibility of death. um, and what you're trying to do is you're emotionally trying to deal with that. So
yeah.
yeah, that's yeah. And it's if but the problem is that if you live in fear, it's kind of like a slow emotional drowning where the imprint of that fear stays in your life and in your brain. So if you want to get over that fear, you've got to change the imprint, and you change the imprint by a learning the pragmatic skills in the safe environment, and then doing the thing you truly fear.
Mm, kind of like easing into it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's pretty powerful. Is that just like that's one risk that you've kind of like conquered? Have you tried to do it with like other stuff? Like, I mean, I'm sure everybody has something that they're afraid of or something
Yeah.
that they're working on, and it's interesting. I guess you have it's hard to say. Like, I guess with like swimming, like you could jump into like
Mm,
a safe pool, but if it's like a real
mm,
world activity, you gotta
mm.
dip your toes in. You
Yeah.
gotta like, I guess you have to face rejection. Like, let's say for like a
Yeah.
sales call or something, it's like
Yeah.
instead of going if you're afraid of getting rejected, then it's not going to help you out very well. But if you say getting rejected is fine, it's safe, I'm okay with it, that could be a really
Mhm.
big breakthrough for you, because you're going to face the risk head on. But it's safer for you. I don't know, I'm kind of rambling, but it's just interesting to think about, like, in order to get over your fears is you have
Mm.
to first think of your safety, because like safety is like the number one thing for human beings.
Yes.
Like, it's just the way
Yes,
that our
it's
brains
safety.
work.
Yeah.
Like, if we
Yeah.
feel unsafe, we're not going to do anything. And
Yeah.
it's kind of our ego is always there telling us, oh,
Mm.
that's unsafe. Let's not do that,
Yeah.
because the
And that
ego
ego
wants
is
to
also
stay
about
safe.
looking stupid, like, oh, I feel unsafe, but also I look stupid.
Yeah.
Like that swimming with that green outfit like a frog. Like, I didn't want to look like that. Everybody wants to be like, an Olympic swimmer when they first get in the water, but that takes time, right? I'm still
Mhm.
not that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. So did you have a lot of breakthroughs when you were writing the book? You're just like, oh, once we
Yes.
did this, we did
Yeah.
this. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah. So some parts of it, so I'll speak about one thing that I think is very, very relatable because we do a lot of this in entrepreneurship. Okay, so public speaking,
Mhm.
right? That's feared more than death, or feared equal to death, or it's like I'm dying when I'm on stage.
Yeah.
And this fear stays with us a lot. And the thing about this particular fear is every time you go on stage or every time you're talking, you still have that fear. It's like it doesn't fully go away. You just learn to ride the wave, is what I call
Mhm.
it. So it's an interesting one. And when I was younger, I did this speech, right? I was ready. I was not good at any sport, clearly. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll try doing something else, like public speaking. There was this elocution competition that I signed up for. And, there were 7 topics. And the one that I did not prepare for, because I'm like, okay, 6 out of 7 probability, I'm going to get one of these 6. Let me prepare it. All good. I went there and got that one topic I did not prepare for. And then one topic I did not prepare. It's always life, right?
Mhm.
It was wildlife. And I had prepared for a Stitch in Time Saves Nine, and I was all ready and went up and they introduced me as, oh, here's Melissa Concessio talking about wildlife. I went up on stage and I had not prepared, and I started talking about what I knew the best, which was a Stitch in Time Saves Nine. Then I'm like, I saw everybody in the audience and their jaws had kind of gone, like, what is she talking about? And I'm like, I'm gonna switch midway. So I started talking about a Stitch in Time Saves Nine. And then I started talking about wildlife and a Stitch in Time, which was like about wildlife and drugs, and it made no sense. And this was in front of my entire school, and they were laughing and they were pointing, and kids can be cruel.
Yeah.
It was it was the talk of the town for like weeks. And yeah, I was really hurt. And I mean, I was fine while I was on stage. I stopped rambling and I eventually got off it, but that stayed with me as well. And as I didn't even become an adult, but as an older teen, I'm like, I'm gonna change this. I'm
Mhm.
gonna change this. And I started to learn a bit more how to do a speech properly. I signed up to another elocution competition, and I went up on stage and I won the first place, right? And then
Nice.
yeah, I had to go for more stuff, so I started speaking more. And even though I was still hiding in meetings and all of that, I had to really get myself out of my shell.
Mhm.
So I went up on stage and I spoke again and I started to speak from the heart. And every single time it was scary, but you never know the true outcome of something until you try again and you try again and you try again and you make that experience that wasn't so great because you've done the work and you've done the practice and you've pushed yourself to go out again and try again. Because now,
Mhm.
okay, I'm a decent speaker, right? I'm not the best, I'm not the worst, I'm a decent speaker. And that's only because I chose to try again after having a moment that almost killed me.
Yeah, get up and try again.
Yeah, try again.
Try again. That's what life is, you know. Uh,
Yeah,
I can't remember who the quote was, but it's like success is getting up after failure with like
yeah.
charisma or something like
No
that.
loss of enthusiasm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know that quote. I
Mhm.
never know who it's from, but I always know what the quote is.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm all about the listener's success. So what
Yes.
kind of what kind of tips do you think you could help to help just people have a better life and help them with success?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I wrote about this recently. It's not it's a brand new thing that I came up with. Uh because I started seeing a lot of people who felt self-pity,
Mhm.
right? So there's a difference between, I think, self-love, self-compassion, and self-pity. And that line is very, very fine. Right? When when you do something and you don't win, and that happens a lot in entrepreneurship, it's like one of the biggest things, like failures after failures and not knowing what you're doing and having overwhelm and things are too complicated and you just wanted to get this one small thing up, but it took all day. You know how it is. So
Mhm.
when you have self pity, it leads you to a place of sadness. That place of sadness leads to loss of enthusiasm. It leads to um, less growth. It leads to more failure.
Mhm.
But if you have self compassion and you believe in self love instead of self pity, the difference is that you find yourself in a place of kindness where
Mhm.
you go, hey, that was a lot of stuff I took on,
Yeah.
right? I took on a lot of stuff.
Uh,
So, you know what? And I'm trying, and I don't know how to do this yet, but I'll figure it out. And you know what? I know I will figure it out because I'm operating from a place of positivity. Most of us sometimes find ourselves in operating from a place of negativity.
mm,
And when you operate from that space, it doesn't give you the ability to use everything of you. When you're operating from a positive place, it gives you everything so that you can deliver that message or you can deliver what you need to do from the best place possible, not from the worst, because that's not going to get you, that self-pity place, not going to get you anywhere. But that self-compassion and kindness towards yourself is going to get you everything you want. So more self-kindness, less self-pity.
yeah, it's so cool. I love the idea of operating from a place of positivity because
Yeah.
sometimes I'm operating from a place of making money, and that's not quite the most positive, not quite the most positive place that I could be working.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, from a place of money. Yeah. I think knowing the end goal of what that money is gonna do for you is
Mhm.
is good. But if it's just money for money, like there's a lot of sad billionaires out there. So
Yeah,
like money for money is not worth anything.
yeah.
Yeah.
I guess you used to work in a bank, right? I always figured
Yeah, yeah.
if I worked in a bank, I'd see all the money out there, and it would kind of change the way that I think about things.
So I'll tell you something. You hardly see any money, and you see all of the money. I mean, the money you see is electronic. So I've seen accounts that had like, I don't know, $500 million just sitting there, because we used to do it for institutions and for, and I wouldn't say whose account this is,
Uh-huh.
but we actually had access to seeing people's accounts, and in their accounts, yeah, 500 million just sitting. So much so that the zeros would go to a second line.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah,
So yeah, there's this quote that go back to what you're talking about, but it's don't wait until you've reached your goal to be proud of yourself. Be proud of every step
yeah,
you take toward reaching that goal. And I think that's
yeah.
so good to hear. And as an entrepreneur, you tend to lose sight because like when you're going for something and you're not there yet, you lose a little, you get a little disheartened. But if you're able just to look back at how far you've come, sometimes you can
Yep.
really find some power and from momentum. And like you said, just like be proud that you took on a lot of stuff and you will figure it out eventually. I think that is just so
Hmm.
powerful. I love that. I also remembered my other quote. It's failure to failure with enthusiasm. That's what
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit about your personal development journey with what you're trying to do, where you're like educating and making stuff.
Yeah. So I started on, even while I was like working full time in banking, started teaching about personal education, and I found that the biggest factor of my career growth was actually linked completely to personal development. Very,
Mm,
very interesting, because people think that they need to get that other certificate, that other qualification, and actually nada. That was a lot of people just got said, oh, work harder. That's the worst one. Work all day, all night. Because I was doing all of these things, right? At that time. I remember I had to prove myself when I got into this new bank. That was my dream all along. And as a kid, most people, I don't know what kind of games they play to imagine that they're in their future profession, maybe a space astronaut. Or mine used to be going to meetings. I used
yeah.
to go to meetings. I used to wear my mother's heels and attend meetings all day, which is the most silliest. Anyway, so when I got into a bank, it was my dream accomplished at that point, because I was like, yes, I'm finally going to get to go to meetings in heels. That's what I want. So, when I went to these meetings, I didn't speak at all. So it was kind of a counter, yeah, intuitive of what I thought I was going to do. But the point of this all being that personal development is going to give you the edge on every single thing that you want. Because again, I'll go back to, you operate from a place of positivity, but of growth as well. So I add
Mm,
another one in there. When you operate from a place of, um, I need to get that certificate. I need to work harder. I need to do all of this stuff. You're not drawing in on the best that you can be.
yeah.
You're drawing in on something that's past or something that's current. But you can, when you operate from something in the future of where you want to be, then you're operating also at a high level. So I'll explain this in terms of an example. So I was working really long hours. Um, I was trying to get all of this done. I got all of this done. I was working. I didn't get any recognition. So I changed things for this company. So we were doing some software work at that time, and I changed things for this company, things that they weren't able to do uh, for 10 years. And I was told by somebody else in the business that, hey, don't even try. I know you're new here. Don't even try doing this, because we went to Microsoft, and Microsoft couldn't fix this
Mm,
themselves. So I don't think you're gonna fix it. It was pretty much, and I'm like, I'm gonna fix it.
yeah. I'm gonna do it.
Because I had done, no, I had education to back me up. I knew that I had done something similar in another software, so I was like, I'm gonna fix it. There's a way to fix this,
Mhm.
and I fixed it for them, and I didn't get anything back. I didn't get, everybody else got promotions, I guess, because they said that they fixed it. I don't know what happened, but I was just still stuck in the same place, being asked to fix more stuff.
Yeah.
So the reward for work was just more work and no recognition and nothing. And I didn't even get my, so we used to work towards bonuses, huge banking bonuses, and I didn't get any of that year. And I'm like, I'm doing something wrong. Like, I'm
Yeah.
working all these hours, I'm fixing all this stuff, but nothing is happening. And I started to, obviously, I used to still read at that time, and I started to go to a place where I'm like, what do I need to do? And I realized that it was all about my communication. I didn't speak to anyone higher up in the business. I didn't have any relationships with people. I didn't spend my time getting to know them. They didn't even know who I was. When you're starting out and you've got so many levels of management, they don't even know who you are. So even
Mm.
in the entrepreneurship world, to connect that, like some of the clients, like if they don't even know who you are, how do you want them to buy from you? It's the same thing. They
Yeah.
really need to know who you are. So I started to get into my personal development of learning how to speak better, how to communicate better, how to have better relationships. And that's when I grew a lot more. So I had opportunities that came up in terms of speaking to, I think about 400 or 500 executives at that time. Took up that opportunity. Was the talk of the senior meeting, right? In one day, they're speaking about it forever because it was just a crazy fun performance, which nobody ever had done. It was just always sad, boring meetings. But this was a crazy performance to, get people out of their chairs and get them a bit excited about our next quarter. Very, very businessy next quarter. But it was good, right? Because it jumped people, I gave them some enthusiasm. It was about connecting with people, and I had done that. And that's the year I got my full bonus. It's funny. Like all I had to do was just jump on stage and say, hey, like, motivate people. And I was quite surprised that I did all of this work before, then I worked harder and it never worked for me. But I go up on stage and I say some awesome things to people because they were true, and I get my full bonus. Like, what? I should just, if I knew that, I would have just worked on my communication skills first.
Yeah.
And so I started to get in deeper and work on my speaking, work on my writing. That helped me get better business proposals out there. That helped us get more money as a company. Like all of these skills are so underestimated, but these skills that are the soft skills and the hard skills put together of speaking and writing, which is what I do now, and teaching about personal development and growing in your communication so you can send that message better by
Mm.
listening, then boom, you've got it all going. You got your clients banging down your door. That's what I
Yeah.
was saying. I don't want to go to clients and say, please buy my stuff. I'm just, I want clients to come to my door and break it down and say, hey, we want your stuff, open up. And I'm like hiding behind the door. I'm like, no, there's so many clients.
They're
I
all
love that
coming.
kind of vision. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that too. That's so cool. I'm just thinking like when you're going through personal development and communication, like
Yeah.
that's what my kind of goal for
Yeah.
this year is like 2021
Mhm.
is the year of collaboration,
Yeah.
and it works. It's like synergy when there's more people on board, when you're really, working with other people and connecting and working on communication. It's really key.
Yeah. Yeah,
Because
yeah, absolutely. Because you get somebody from the inside out. And that's been my goal of the year, just truly understanding people. That's why I've gone into coaching and teaching a lot more, because I thought it was all about the pragmatic skills being a banker. Previously I'm like, yep, you do this, you do this, you do this. What's the problem? And then it's a lot of internal stuff. And hence the book as well that talks a lot about what's going on inside of your head. There's a lot of judgment, there's a lot of fear of rejection, there's a lot of, and people don't take that stuff seriously. But when you take both of the elements in together, you need the pragmatic, you need skill set, you need mindset, and you need tool set.
Hmm.
And if any one of these are missing, you don't get stuff done.
Skill set, mindset, and tool set. Hmm.
Hmm.
That's pretty accurate. You got any tips for working on your mindset?
Yeah. So I think one of the biggest things is what you feel in your brain on a daily basis. And I call this emotional rituals, which combines the physical and the mental part of the brain for mindset, right? So if you look at so Tim Ferriss's Tools of the Titans. That's a major book that I,
Yeah,
I
I love
love.
that book.
I love Tim Ferriss. Yeah. Even 4 hour work week, like I condensed my life into working such short hours. So that's another example of personal development. But this one, Tools of the Titans, I literally had gone through it and like bookmark stuff. And I'm like, this is so awesome because it's the best of the best. And then you learn what they do. And then what I do is I never just look at one book, I look at a whole series of books on the same topic. I find out what I like, I make my own conclusion. And then I randomly, it's like the synergy thing that you mentioned before. When you look at so many things, it creates a synergy in your head to actually come up with something even better. So
Mm.
I looked at all of these books and I'm like, they're talking about rituals every day. And I'm like, hey, nobody's talking about your emotional ritual. So you've got these plans, I'm going to wake up, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And if you don't feel good, you're not going to do any of it. So I'm like, there's no point having a list. I had a list for years that I did not do. So how do I get myself to do it? And how do I get myself to do it was when I came up with the emotional ritual. So there are ways to make yourself feel more confident. Everything that you do now, this is based on research that I did, and everything that you do is a chemical reaction in your brain when you have a feeling. So there's positive chemicals, and I guess that's how drugs work as well. If you think about drugs, there's a chemical reaction. That's why you feel good. You feel euphoria. You feel dopamine. Or you feel yeah. So if you wanted to create that naturally in your body, you just have to do a few things. So one of the things I know a former friend was doing, so he was just full on a former friend, actually friend's brother. He was a full on, he used to spend his time smoking weed pretty much all day, every day. And he had to change something in his life. He met this girl, he fell in love, and he had to change. All of a sudden, within 2 years, we hear back from him, and he had become a bay swimmer. So in the morning, every day at I don't know what time, 4 o'clock, he'd go out and swim in Melbourne, which is freezing in the morning. He'd go out and swim in the bay. And I'm like, and he would preach, about, oh my God, like, look how I've changed. And he'd tell his brother, you need to change. And that's why I don't believe in preaching, but mostly in showing actions that others see. Like, he's swimming in the bay, he's changed his life. That's great. That's good enough.
Yeah.
So what I'm like, how am I going to replicate this? Firstly, I don't want to swim in a bay, but I want to feel good. So the thing about what happens in your brain when there's a burst of cold water is that there's a reaction in your brain where you suddenly feel the spike of energy.
Mm.
So you can do that as simply as if you're having a warm shower, suddenly do a burst of cold water. Just try it. Suddenly do a burst of cold water, and you feel like if you were tired, like you just woke up. And
Yeah.
it's because of the chemical reaction in your brain that's happening. And there's so many other things you can do. So one of them is if you're feeling like you're less confident, sniffing lavender
Mm.
is something that boosts serotonin in your brain, and suddenly you're like feeling confident.
Huh. I guess we
Yeah,
have that.
oxytocin. Go hug somebody, and you'll feel love. No, really, it's just how it works. If you hug 11, so don't hug strangers because we are in COVID right now. But if you hug people, apparently if you're hugging like your friends or something, so you've got 11 of them, by the time you reach the 11th one and you've hugged them, you're actually high on oxytocin. Look this
Nice.
up, because so there's so many things you can do. So these were the things that I started doing on a daily basis, and just making that part of my ritual. So I hug my little baby, I hug him in the morning. It's just adding, and that just adds in so much positive chemical reactions in your life, so that you can go after the things that you wanted, and you can stay happy at the same time.
Yeah, I love it. I used to do cold showers or whatever they're called,
Yeah,
cold baths. Yeah, I did it for
yeah,
a long time, and then I've stopped, and it's like, why
yeah,
don't I do that again? It really changed my life for a little while because it just gets rid of all the inflammation in your body, and you just feel more
yeah.
energy. But it still sucks.
So how did you feel though after? So obviously when you're in the moment you're like, oh, this is cool, but after, did you feel always a burst of energy, or how did you feel?
Oh, I always felt way better, especially
Oh
after
yeah.
like even the first time you do it, you can notice like you're more awake and your body feels better,
Hmm.
and it's because it just really helps inflammation. But I did it for like a month, and I was just feeling amazing. And then I did some
Wow.
traveling, and
Mm.
it totally fell off. Now
Yeah,
my
yeah.
precious hot showers, I'm not doing it anymore. But it's worth doing the cold showers, and then I've done some breathing exercises lately, and
Okay,
those two
yes.
things have been so powerful. Like they're actual things
Yes.
that make a difference, like in your vibration or just in your mood. They say if you
Mm,
take like at least six big deep breaths and you hold it in, it'll change the
mm.
mental state that you're in, and it's works. It's pretty cool. So yeah, man, it's been awesome. Uh, where can everybody find you online, and where can people buy your book?
Yeah, sure. So, um, if you Google "Go Find Yourself" or you look it up on Amazon, you'll find it there. And or you look up my name, Melissa Concessio. A lot of things will come up, including my book on Amazon. So it's as easy as that. You can also go to my website at melissaconcessio.com, and on Facebook, on Instagram, Melissa Concessio again. Concessio is the word concession, without the N. So it's easy enough to find now that you know it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm available on Facebook and Instagram as well. That's where I share most of my recorded videos in my attempt to teach people this year everything that I've learned through the years. So, and I've been through a lot, by the way, and you read that in the book. Like people think that, oh, I've come from this super happy family and I'm so upbeat and blah blah blah. And no, actually, I lived in domestic violence for a lot of my life and overcome a lot of very very difficult things to become the person that I wanted to be. So you can find all of that information in my book about how I overcame the most difficult things in my life to become who I wanted to be. And you can also find that in the videos that I'm doing lately to teach people about this on Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome. Well, you're fighting the good fight, and I'm glad you're doing much better now. So the question that I'm asking all my guests is, what really motivates you, or what is motivation?
Sure. Okay. What motivates me is other people, helping other people. I used to feel that self pity that I spoke about earlier for myself because I was in very difficult situations in my life where we had a lot of money and then we moved to a one bedroom nothing in the middle of nowhere with six people, right, sleeping on the floor. And yeah, the domestic violence had gotten worse as well during that time. I was feeling sorry for myself. I walked in the streets, and this was in Mumbai, and I saw this girl, this I think I was about 15 at the time, when I saw this girl who was in the street, living in the street, pregnant. And I said, "Oh my goodness, I'm feeling sorry for myself. Here you are, without any food, without any shelter, with your unborn child living in the street, you yourself being a child." And I'm like, I've got to stop feeling sorry for myself, and I need to be motivated enough to help others. And my mindset switched. I need to help others. That's what gives me motivation.
Yeah. No, it happens all the time whenever it's kind of funny. It's not funny, but whenever I'm like feeling down on myself, if I like read a book about like
Mm,
Russia ever, I'm like, oh, my life's not
mm.
that bad. you know,
Yeah,
or you see
yeah.
people struggling. You gotta really be grateful for everything that you have and everything else. Do you have any other tips just on how you kind of turned your life around or how you got out of the struggle
Yeah.
into a better life?
Yeah. So I'll just back what we said earlier with a statistic, which is 80% of the world, according to World Bank, lives under $10 a day. If you're living over $10 a day, you're doing pretty good to start with. So that's a tip.
Yeah.
You're in the top. You're seriously in the top of the top, right? So another tip that I'd give is read, learn.
Mm.
Um, watch, even if it's watching videos. Just find out more, and everything might not sink in the moment, but like Steve Jobs says, everything will connect in the future. Everything that you do connects, and even if you feel like today's a failure and this is difficult, and why did I do this? Like, why did I spend my life trying to write this and nobody read it? Well, you know what? The dots will connect in the future. Believe in yourself. I believe in you, and it's going to happen. Just do everything you really want to do that's in your heart. Don't let it die in there, because that's when you truly die. You don't die when you physically die, you die when you leave your dreams to die. So go after it. Learn to write, learn to speak a bit better, learn to communicate, and learn to listen. And yeah, I I just coaching has been one of the best things for me, to coach other people how to speak and write, because it helps me listen so much more, and I understand that, hey, it's not just about the pragmatic skills. Here's your list: to do. Did you do any of it? No. Why? Right? There's all of
Mhm.
these things going on in your head. When you realize that and you truly listen, I feel you become so much better of a learner, writer, and teacher as well, to impact everyone in your life. So you're going to be that person of impact. And I can see it for you. You just need to do what you really want to do that's inside your heart.
Mm. Well, I'm so happy to connect with you today. You have any last thoughts kind of before we wrap it up?
No, if you ever find yourself in a dull moment, remember all these natural things you can create in your brain. Just take in a deep breath, run in the sunshine, give someone a hug,
Yeah.
and be happy and do the work. Like, life's too short to live it any other way.
Well, thank you so much for being a light in the world. I appreciate that. And thank you, everybody, for listening. I'm sure everybody learned something. And don't forget to go purchase her book and find yourself. And thank you, Melissa, for coming on.
Thanks, Robert. It's been a pleasure to be here with you.
No problem. And thank you, everybody listening. Be sure to like and share. And if you got some value, share it with a friend so that they can get in on it. All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye.